Good evening, study partners. Tonight's lesson will be on Perek Zayin, chapter 7 of Masechtas Yuma. Tonight's class is dedicated in loving memory of my dear mother, Rivka Bas Harav Reb Shloimeh. Chapter 7 begins the study of, towards the afternoon of Yom Kippur, and continues on with details of the Kohen Gadol during this most special day. Bolei Kohen Gadol likreis. They come to the Kohen Gadol to read the Torah. Im ratza likreis bevigdei vutz. If he wants to read the Torah while he's still wearing his Yom Kippur clothing, he may do so. He can read it in those clothing. Now, what does this mean? Generally speaking, a Kohen Gadol wears eight begodim, 8 garments. And these garments are going to be discussed later on. On Yom Kippur, whenever he would go into the Holy of Holies, he would remove all the golden vestments, and he would only wear linen clothing. Now, the reason for this is because he's coming to atone for the Jewish people. If he were to come in wearing gold, it may be a reminder of the sin of the golden calf. So therefore, when he goes into the Holy of Holies, he's wearing plain clothing, like a regular Kohen. Only linen garments. So now, at this point in the afternoon, he had just been in the Holy of Holies. So now he's wearing white clothing, none of gold, none of the special. So the Mishnah is telling us, if he wants, he could read the Torah on Yom Kippur still wearing those special Yom Kippur clothing, which are just white. Imloi, but if not, he doesn't want to. It's up to him. The option is his. He can wear his own kittel for Yom Kippur, and he can get changed into his own clothing before reading the Torah. Excuse me. So how does this procedure work? Chazan HaKnesses, the Gabbai of the Shul of the Beis HaMikdash, Noitel Sefer Torah, he takes the Torah, and he gives it to the head of the Shul that was at the Beis HaMikdash. There was a Shul there where people would daven, people would gather, and so the head of the Shul, we create a formal procedure here to give kavod to the Torah, to give kavod to the day, to give kavod to the Kohen Gadol. Now the Rosh HaKnesses, the head of the Shul, gives it to the assistant Kohen Gadol. Vaskan, and the assistant Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol, goes ahead and gives the Torah to the Kohen Gadol. This is a procedure to make it more choshev, to make it more important and more beautiful. The Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol is standing at this point. Umekabel, he receives the Torah while standing. The Kohen Emed, and he reads the Torah while standing. This is different, of course, than the king at the Hakel ceremony, who reads the Torah while sitting. Now, what does he read? From which portions does he read? The Kohen Achrei Mos, he reads from Achrei Mos, the Torah portion of Achrei Mos. And he reads V'ach Ba'asar, which is also in Achrei Mos. V'geilo Sefer Torah, he rolls up the Sefer Torah, Manicha B'cheke, brings it to his chest. V'aymer, and he says, Yeser Mamash Shekarasi Lefnechem Kosov Kan, more than is written, more than I read before you was written here. And then Uva'asar, the portion that's Uva'asar in Parshas Pinchas, Shebechumash HaPekudim, which is in Chumash Bamidbar, Keira Al Peh, he reads by heart. Why does he read it by heart? So the reason is as follows. There's 2 issues here. We can't bring a second Sefer Torah because then somebody's going to think that the first Sefer Torah was missing this part. And that's going to be an embarrassment to the first Sefer Torah. Normally, when we have a mafter, we call up a different person. And since we call up a different person, we don't have this issue. But here, the same person who's reading, which is the Kohen Gadol, who's reading the first portion, he's also reading the second portion. Now, so to bring a second Torah is not an acceptable thing because, again, People are going to cast suspicions on the first Torah. Now, for him to roll the Torah all the way to Chumash Pekudim from Vayikra, this is called Tircha de Tzibura. It's a tircha. It's a bother to the community. Everybody's standing there. It's Yom Kippur, and he's fooling around, rolling Torahs. So, in deference to the community at large, to show respect to them, that we respect their time, we don't start rolling Torahs. This, by the way, we see from here how careful you have to be with the Tzibur's time. And so, therefore, the usual prohibition of reading Torah Shebal Peh, Torah Shebeksav by heart, announcing it by heart, is suspended here. And so he reads it by heart so that he shouldn't be a bother to the crowd, but also he has to make the announcement more than I said is written here, so no one should think that the reason he's reading it by heart is because it's missing here also. So he makes this announcement, and then he reads it by heart. He recites over this 8 blessings. First of all, he reads Ala Torah. He makes blessings before and after for the Torah reading. Now, originally, only the first person who got an Aliyah made a Brachas HaTorah, and the last person made the end Bracha. It was only later on that it was established that each person who gets an Aliyah makes the Bracha before and after. So here, he's telling us that he's reading the Torah blessing that we make today. Then he makes the Bracha Al Avodah on the service, which is Ritzei Hashem Elokeinu, asking Hashem to accept the service. Then the Al Ha'idah, he makes the Moedim prayer, Moedim Anachnu Lach. Then he says the Al HaMikdash, he makes a special blessing that the Beis HaMikdash should remain standing and Hashem Shechina should rest in there. Then he makes a bracha of Al Yisrael B'fnei Atzman, he makes a bracha for the Bnei Yisrael, benching the Yidden, the Israelites. He makes a blessing, Hashem who chose the Yidden. Then he makes Val Yerushalayim B'fnei Atzman, he makes another blessing for Yerushalayim, for the welfare of Yerushalayim. Then Val HaKoyanim B'fnei Atzman, he makes a bracha for the Kohanim. It's a special blessing that he makes for the one Hashem who chose the descendants of Aaron. Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaKoyanim. The Al Shura Tefillah, and he makes a bracha for the rest of the Tefillah, which is Baruch Atah Hashem Shemei HaTefillah, the Shema Kileinu prayer. Okay. Mishnah Beis, chapter 7, Mishnah Beis. A person who was present, who saw the Kohen Gadol when he was reading the Torah, he could not possibly see the ox and the he-goat as they were being burnt. And the person who was able to see the ox and the he-goat being burnt could not see the Kohen Gadol while he was reading. It wasn't because there was some sort of rule against this, because there was a distance between the two, and it was at the same time. So therefore, you had to pick, what do you want to see? Now, if he decided to read the Torah, as we mentioned in Mishnah Aleph, in his Yom Kippur clothing that he had used while he went into the Kodesh Kodashim, so now when he wants to get undressed, as we've been explaining all along, before you get undressed, you have to wash your hands and your feet. So in such a case, since he was still wearing Yom Kippur clothing, so now he's got to get undressed to go to the mikveh. Kiddush Yodav V'Raglov. So now he has to wash his hands and his feet. Poshat, then he gets undressed. Yorad V'Tavel, he descends into the mikveh and he immerses. Olav and Istapog, he gets up and he dries off. Hevi Eloi Vigdei Zahav, and they bring him back his special regular Kohen Gadol garments. V'Lovash, he gets dressed. The Kiddush Yodav V'Raglov, and as usual, after he gets dressed, he once again has to wash his hands and feet. V'Yotza, and he goes out, V'Asas Eloi, and he performs the sacrifice of his ram, Es Ela'am, and the ram of the people. the Shivas Kvosim, and the 7 Tmimim, and the 7 unblemished sheep, the male sheep, B'nei Shana, in their first year. These 7 sheep had to be less than a year old. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. What are the words of Rabbi Eliezer? That he's doing the 7 sheep and right now at this point.
Well, wasn't that for the afternoon?
Rabbi Akiva Eimer, that's in the afternoon. That's what we're talking about. Rabbi Akiva Eimer, Rabbi Akiva disputes this idea. Im Tomit Shel Shachar HaYukrevim, he says that these 7 male sheep, as well as the ox, was sacrificed by the morning sacrifice. In the morning, by the Tomit Shel Shachar, by the daily sacrifice of the morning. This, including the Far HaOila, the ox. The Sora Nasa V'chutz, however, the he-goat, which was performed outside, Hayu Krevim Im Tomit Shel Bein Harbayim, this was brought in the afternoon. So he disputes Rabbi Eliezer's notion, and he says it was only the he-goat that was performed outside that was brought in the afternoon. So there's a dispute here as to the order.
So split into 2 parts, basically.
According to Rabbi Akiva. Now, Mishnah Dalet. Kiddush Yodav V'Raglav, now he washes his hand and feet, Ufoshat, and he gets undressed. Yodad V'Tovel, he descends into the mikveh, he immerses, Ba'olav and Istapok, he gets up, he gets dressed, he dries off. Heviloi Vigdei Lavan. Now they bring him back Yom Kippur clothing for a Kohen Gadol, only white clothing, none of the gold. V'Lavash, he gets dressed, V'Kiddush Yodav V'Raglav, and he washes his hand and feet. Nichnas Lahitzi Esakaf Esamachta. Now he goes back into the Kodesh Kodashim to bring out the spoon, the ladle and the shovel that he had brought in earlier, that he had used with the coals, and that he brought the incense in. Now he goes in back into the Kodesh Kodashim, and of course he cannot be wearing the gold at this time. He comes out, Kiddush Yodav V'Raglav, he washes his hand and his feet. Ufashat, he gets undressed, Yodav V'Tovel, Olav and Stabog. He goes to the mikveh and he comes out and dries off. Now, once again, they bring him his golden clothing, his 8 garments, v'lavash, and he gets dressed. The Kiddush Yodav V'Raglav, he washes his hand and feet. Nichnas lahaktir k'teidah shel bein arbayim, and he enters again to bring the incense of the bein arbayim. These are daily activities that are done, and to prepare the menorah. The Kiddush Yodav V'Raglav, he washes his hand and feet, ufashat, and he gets undressed. Now at this point, it's at the end of all the services that he needs to be done for Yom Kippur. They bring him his own clothing, and he gets dressed. And they escort him to his house. And he makes a big feast for all of his friends. For the very fact that he's still alive now. Because as we've explained in previous weeks and in previous prakim, that not all the time did the Kohen Gadol survive Yom Kippur. Many times the Kohen Gadol would die on Yom Kippur because he wasn't worthy of being a Kohen Gadol. He bought the rights from the Romans. And even so, and they had to pull him out with the strings, out of the Kodesh Kodashim, dead. Of course, this was a pretty traumatic experience, and people were worried for him. So now in this case, obviously it's the end of Yom Kippur, he's still alive, and so he makes a big feast to celebrate the fact that indeed he was worthy, enough, at least worthy enough, that he wasn't killed in the Kodesh Kodashim.
Who's the they? Is it the Levium? Is it
who accounted? A whole parade of people. There were thousands and thousands of people.
I'm saying when you said they brought him the big days up.
Oh, these are the attendants. Yeah, these are
so
attendants.
They're not like Levium or.
No, but you have to remember also another thing that we said earlier is that not all the time did the Kohen Gadol know exactly what he's supposed to do.
Correct.
So they always had people around him to show him and teach him.
last paragraph said, הביאו לו בגדי זהב ולבש, כדי שידיו ורגליו, ונכנס להקטיר קטורת, ותו בגדי זהב.
Yes, so the lahaktir k'teres, lahachnis, when you said that he goes in, he doesn't go into the Kodesh Kodashim. He goes into the Beis Hamikdash, into the Azara. So he's getting dressed outside the area. So now he goes back in, but he's not going back in to the Kodesh Kodashim because he never goes in the Kodesh Kodashim wearing gold.
Because before they said they use the same.
No, this is again we had an additional getting undressed and dressed between that.
Right, he comes only in with white.
If you look carefully, you'll see there. He got undressed after the white, puts on gold, goes into the Beis Hamikdash, performs the last two things, and comes out, gets undressed into his regular clothing. Okay.
Why would they send him back in to get that shovel and whatever?
Because that's who's going to go in if not him? No one's allowed in there. Only him. Only on Kohen only on Yom
So
Kippur.
So he had to go in twice on
He
Yom
went in
Kippur.
more than
They
twice.
use the same expression, v'nichnas.
Yeah, v'nichnas, but not the nichnas into the. I know it does use the same expression, but going in is a relative term. Going into what? So here he obviously is not. The menorah wasn't in the Kodesh Kodashim. He goes in, he does the menorah, he does the ketores. Where does he go in? He doesn't prepare the menorah. He doesn't prepare the wicks of the menorah in the Kodesh Kodashim. Hey, Kohen Gadol mishamash mishmeina v'kelim. A Kohen Gadol serves in 8 clothing, in 8 garments, the hedyet ba'arba, and a plain Kohen in 4. What is the 4 that a plain Kohen? B'kutoines, in a tunic. The Kohanim had tight, it was like a robe that had tight-fitting sleeves, and it went down almost till their heel. Umichnasayim, and they wore pants, umitznefet, and a special hat. The ephod, and an apron that umitznefes, and a hat. Now, moisifin olav Kohen Gadol. On top of that, the Kohen Gadol wore. I skipped the line. That's why. I apologize. Back. Moisifin olav Kohen Gadol. In addition to these, the Kohen Gadol wore cheshen, a breastplate, which had the Avnei Shoyam and the Tumim. Yeah, the ephod, and this was a special garment. It was an apron made of golden linen. It was an apron-like garment that was worn from the back and wide enough to come all the way to the front.
But weren't there still, is that Avnei Milum? No.
Yeah, the Avnei Miluyim.
So that had
That's
each of the,
Avnei Miluyim.
that had each of the
That's correct.
names on each of the stones.
That's correct.
Yeah, but then there
That's
was
part of the
another 2
choshen.
stones that he wore.
That's a part of the choshen. And that whole get up there, that's all called the choshen. The Eli wore a cloak, the tzitz, and a golden plate that said Kodesh LaHashem. The Elu nisholim be'urim v'tumim, wearing these 8 special garments, so they were able to ask questions of the Urim v'Tumim. These were again the names of the Bnei Yisrael, which were on special stones, as described in the Torah. Ein nisholim ela lemelech, but not anybody can ask. You don't ask questions to the Urim v'Tumim for just anybody for any reason.
Wait. They used to ask questions to Urim v'Tumim?
Yes, absolutely. They would have questions, and different letters would light up, and the Kohen Gadol would see the answers.
Different stones.
Different letters on the stones would light up, so they can read it.
Interesting.
So with wearing these 8 garments, they were able to ask. There was Hashem. Hashem was on parchment in the folds. And this was an incredible thing. You can only ask for a king, or a vezdin, or for the court, or somebody whom the public needs. For example, the Kohen Meshuach L'Muhammad, the Kohen who was anointed for warfare, he had a question, important question. This is what the Gemara says. The Rambam seems to be of the opinion that the Gemara is using that as an example, but not saying that that's exactly what it means. Meaning anybody who the public needs, and it's an important question, they would ask questions on their behalf. They would get answers. There was the famous story with when Chana went into Davin, so for a child, and she was ended up having Shmuel Hanavi. So the Kohen Gadol, Eli the Kohen Gadol, he was reading the Urim v'Tumim at the time, learned the Mefarshim there. It's beautiful to understand the deeper meanings there. In any case, we are going to continue on now with chapter 8, and I believe we should have more than enough time to finish the final chapter of this exciting Masechta. Yom Kippurim. Now, we're going to shift here from the Kohen Gadol, and we're going to move on to the general public. How do we behave on Yom Kippur? Osir b'achila u'v'shsiya. You are not allowed to eat or drink on Yom Kippur. Over the chitza, you are not allowed to wash yourself. Even washing your little pinky is not allowed if it's washing for pleasure. If you're washing because you got dirty or you went to the bathroom, that's a different story. When you wake up in the morning, you only wash the knuckles when you're washing knuckle washing, because we don't wash more than necessary. That's not done for pleasure. That's done to remove the tumah on your hands. So, what's more? Uvesicha, one is not allowed to anoint themselves with oils or creams of any sort. Uvene'ilas asandal, one is not allowed to wear shoes. Uvesash v'samita, and one is not allowed to engage in marital relations. And in fact, the halacha is that all of the prohibitions that we have during when a wife is a nida, so we don't sleep in the same bed, and we don't pass things to each other, we don't touch each other, no hugging and kissing, all of these harchakas that we have during the nida period, all of these are followed on Yom Kippur as well. It's the same laws.
But only Achila and Shti are your chayiv kares, though, right?
Well, we're going to get into that in a moment. Okay. But hold on. V'hamelech v'akala. Now, of course, in addition to this, you asked about kares, and of course, in addition to this, you're not allowed to do any work, as clearly listed in the Torah. All of these things are not listed in the Torah. It just says, it's nafshei sechem, you have to afflict yourself. And Halacha Moshe Messina established these rules. Established these rules, but you're not allowed to perform any malach. It's like a Shabbos. Yeah. V'hamelech v'hakala. However, according to this opinion, we're going to get into this in a moment. According to Rabbi Eliezer, v'hamelech, a king, v'hakala, and a bride, yirchatzu es paneim, they could wash their face. That's not considered washing for pleasure. Everybody's looking at the king, or everybody's looking at the kala, a new kala. And so they're going to be embarrassed. It's going to cause them great discomfort. Achaya, and a woman who just gave birth, sinal as a sandal, she can wear shoes to keep herself more comfortable. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, these are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. So he makes exceptions to some of these rules. The Chachamim prohibit this, and the
halach is like the Chachamim.
The Chachamim is like Rabbi Eliezer. Whoever eats the size of a large date, its size together with its pit. So such a person, or a person who drinks full cheeks worth of liquid, so chayav, he is chayav. So if he does this by accident, so he's going to be a chayav v'chatos. He does it on purpose, it's kares. Whoever, all foods combine to the size of this large date. So if you're eating cookies and something else, and crackers of a different sort, or pretzels and peanuts, just for example, all of these foods combine. It doesn't have to be of one type. And all liquids also combine for this cheekfuls. To fill the cheeks, meaning to say this amount. However, food and drink do not combine to make somebody liable. Now, what happens, Mishnah Gimel, person who ate and drank in one single period of forgetfulness, so this can be either two ways. Either he can forget, that today's Yom Kippur, he wakes up in the morning and he doesn't remember that it's Yom Kippur, goes downstairs and he eats and drinks, eats breakfast. So now, even though he ate and drank, and then afterwards he finds out, his wife comes down and says, what are you doing? It's Yom Kippur. So he has to bring a korban chatos. Now, because it was in one lapse of forgetfulness, there's another possibility. He remembered it's Yom Kippur, but he forgot that you're not allowed to eat and drink. So again, it's one lapse. In such a case, he would only bring one chatas. Ochal v'asal malacha. But if he performed forbidden labor, like on Shabbos, only these labor, he ate. So that's two different type of prohibitions. One is work and one is eating. And so therefore, chayav shtei chatos. He has to bring 2 korban chatos.
Is this a chatas kavua?
Yeah, chatos kavua. Ochal eicholin she'einu ruyin lachila. What happens if a person ate something that's not normally eaten? If a person drinks pickle juice or brine, or people don't normally drink or eat ketchup or mustard. You eat a bowl of mustard. That's not normally eaten. That's not foods that normally eaten. Pickle juice is not normally drunk. So b'shas atziroi murios, or he drinks brine or salted fish fats. Potter, although you don't do this, but potter, that's not eating and drinking. That's not normal eating and drinking. That's prohibited by the Torah. Yes.
What if somebody really likes pickle brine?
The fact that you really like the pickle
It's
brine
normal for them. Like
does not make it considered normal. There are certain people, there are certain rabbanim. I've heard this in the past when somebody's feeling faint, but for whatever reason the Rav didn't feel it appropriate for them to actually drink regularly. He says, you're feeling weak. Drink pickle juice.
Like in Russia, they do it. Fine.
Well, a full cup.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess maybe then in Russia it would be different than what the Mishnah is saying. In the Mishnah's times, obviously, they're not normally fit to eat and drink. Perhaps this would make a difference. Do they really drink pickle juice in Russia?
It's really good, especially when you're hungover.
Oh, when you're hungover, okay. Which happens more often in Russia.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, the person of Russian descent is laughing. I'm not racist or racial or anything. We're just cracking a joke. Okay. Hatinaykes. Children. We do not afflict them on Yom Kippur. We train them a year or 2 before they are bar and bas mitzvah. So that they should become accustomed to mitzvahs. What does this mean? This means that you have them start part of the day, maybe a little bit longer, based on their capabilities, based on their ages. You start to train them, but there's no need for them to fast the entire fast, obviously. But something that will be meaningful, that they will start knowing, on Yom Kippur, you have to fast, and it's not the most comfortable. L'maisa, l'halach l'maisa, even little children, we do not put them on leather shoes, but that's even for little children. Ubara shehiricha machilin, ubara shehiricha, a pregnant woman who smelled, and now she's going crazy because she smelled food and she feels like she really needs food badly. So the rule is that you give her to eat until she calms down and recovers. Why? Because we're afraid that she will miscarry. We're afraid that there could be a sakana.
That's a limited portion.
No, it's not. Don't use this Mishnah. Mishnah is not the halacha lemaisa for today. You need to talk to a capable rabbi who can advise you on these things. Please do not take this halacha lemaisa. Mishnah b'chlal is not halacha lemaisa. There are times where the Mishnah says something definitively, and the halacha lemaisa does not go according to the Mishnah. So again, we're learning Mishnah here. This is academic. Do not use this as any heter of any sort before discussing this with a rabbi.
To find the right rabbi.
He says you have to find the right rabbi. Okay, you always have to find the right rabbi. Okay. So machilin isa ad shetoshav nafsha, until she recovers and she's feeling okay. Chayla. What about a person who is sick? Machilin isa al pi v'kiyam. You give him food based on the opinion of doctors. When you have a doctor there and the doctor says this person needs to eat, so then he has to eat. Not only could he eat, but he has to eat. A person who's a diabetic, by way of example, he could be very dangerous, and you have to eat. They can't fast. They're not allowed to fast. And what if there's no doctors there? So if the person's ill, so he says, I need to eat. That's enough. You give him to eat. Until he says, I've eaten enough and I'll be okay. Misha achaze vulmus. A person who is seized by bulmus, this is an illness that a person gets when he's starving. So this rule is not just in Kippur, this rule is any time. Person, he starts going crazy because he hasn't eaten. You can feed him anything, even non-kosher foods. Whatever is available right away, you can give him to eat. It's a sakonas nefashis. It's a danger to his life. Until his vision is restored. They go blind, they go crazy when you haven't eaten so long. When a rabid dog bites somebody, so the halacha here, according to this opinion, is you can't feed it, you can't kill the dog and feed it its liver lobe, which was once upon a time thought to be a cure for this. Now this is according to the first opinion. So he says that, now the first opinion, says that this was a cure that's not really a cure. People only talked about it. It's not medically accepted. It was homeopathic of sorts, and wasn't proven. And so he says you can't eat it. You can't feed it to the person. Rabbi Masya ben Chodesh matter, but Rabbi Masya ben Chodesh permits it. He says, being that there are people who say that it works, and there's some sort of testimonies that it works, so he allows it, even though it's not kosher, and it's not proven in the medical community. Rabbi Masya ben Chodesh also says, a person who has something in his throat, he has an illness in his throat, strep or whatever, I guess. So we're afraid that it's going to spread to his throat, and we want to give him some sort of medication of sorts, an herb that has an antibiotic of sorts. So he says that even though generally speaking the Chazal did not allow medicine to be taken on Shabbos, but in this particular case, he's got this strep throat of sorts. It can spread, he can get more sick. Again, in those days, people who got sick was much more dangerous than it is today. And so he says, if it's prepared before Shabbos, even though strep is not considered a deathly illness, but we don't want to take chances, so you can drop the medicine in his mouth even on Shabbos. Because there is a little bit of a worry here. And again, this is the olden days. The whole sveik nefashis deiches is a Shabbos, and anytime there's a danger to, it's even in doubt, there's a danger to a person's life, so it supersedes Shabbos. Now again, according to, as it's explained, this is only if he made this beforehand. If it wasn't prepared beforehand, this medicine, so only if a doctor would say, this is really dangerous, not just pre-dangerous. So not just preventative. You would have to actually say this is dangerous for him. He really can get sick. In such a case, if there's a real danger, so even if he has to prepare it on Shabbos, you would prepare it on Shabbos. Now, once we're talking about Shabbos and what you can and cannot do on Shabbos, so the Mishnah deviates. Mishnah Zayin, Misha Nafla Alav Mapeles. Somebody who was in a building and the building collapsed on him. Safek Husham, Safek Einisham. Now, the people come. We started the Mishnah with a fact, but the Mishnah kind of steps back from this fact and says, now the people show up. We don't know if he's in this building or not. We don't know if he went out the back. We don't know. We don't know the story. Safek Sham, Safek Husham, Safek Einisham. Maybe he's in the building, maybe he's not. We don't really know. Safek Chai, Safek Meis. Even if he is in the building, and now we don't know if he's alive or he's dead. So the issue here is it's Shabbos, and now to remove stones is going to be a Chilul Shabbos. So the question is what can we do and what should we do? Safek Eivet Kichavim, Safek Yisrael. We don't know if he's a Jewish fellow, we don't know if he's a non-Jewish fellow, or if he's an idol worshiper. In which case, an idol worshiper, we wouldn't run to go save him on Shabbos. Says the Mishnah, in any of these cases, because it's a doubt, in all of these cases, we start removing stones and we off of the pile, off of the room. But if we find him and we see he's alive, so we continue and we get him out there and we do whatever needs to be done. The mace, but if as we're uncovering this pile of stones on the rubble, we see that he's dead already, so then there's no need to continue to violate the Shabbos to take him out. We leave him there until the end of Shabbos. Chatas vasham vadi mechaprin. Now we're back to Yom Kippur, and we're back to atonement and Yom Kippur. Chatos, a korban chatos. Osham vade, and a guilt offering. Mechaprin, they bring atonement. Now, as we're going to see in a moment, or as I explain in a moment, I'll give it a heads up. Obviously, you have to do teshuvah. Misa v'yom HaKippurim mechaprim im tshuva. Now, death and Yom Kippur also bring atonement, of course, with tshuva. Now, the first one is obvious. It's obvious that it's with tshuva. We didn't have to say. You can't violate a commandment and commit a sin and just think you're going to bring a korban and you're going to be fine. It's most obvious that you have to do teshuvah. Here, when it comes to death, a person dies in a difficult way, and Yom Kippur, person goes over Yom Kippur. It's a special day. One might think that you don't have to do teshuvah with it. Says the Mishnah, even for a person who dies, and even for Yom Kippur, you also have to do teshuvah. But in the first case, it's obvious that the Mishnah doesn't even bother to say it. It's obvious that when you bring a korban chatas, when you bring a sin offering, or a asham, a guilt offering, you have to do teshuvah. It's not going to help you if you didn't do teshuvah. Now, hatshuva. Now, new statement. Tshuva mechaperes al averos kales. Lesser transgressions, tshuva atones for them. Al aseh, al lisaseh, on a mitzvah, on a positive commandment and on a negative commandment. However, valachamuris, but on strict sins, graver sins, teshuva hisela. So when you do teshuva, you're still hanging on over your head. Ad sheyavi Yom Kippurim, until Yom Kippur comes. Yom Kippur is a special day with the power of Yom Kippur. Then he is forgiven. Tes ha'omer echtav ashuv. Echtav ashuv. A person says, I'm going to sin, and then I'll do teshuvah, and then I'll sin again, I'll do teshuvah. Ein maspikim biyodei lases teshuvah. Min hashamayim, we don't give him special opportunities and assistance to go do teshuvah. As explained in Tanya, if a person grabs the opportunity and does teshuvah, ein lecha davar she'emet b'fnei teshuvah, there's nothing that stands in the way of teshuvah. However, he's not given assistance.
You can't go back and forth.
Echtav Yom Kippurim mechaper. Person says, I'll sin, and then Yom Kippur is coming anyway. And then I'll do teshuvah. Ein Yom Kippurim mechaper, so Yom Kippur does not atone for him. Aveda shebein adam la'mokein, sins that are between man and God. Yom Kippurim mechaper. Yom Kippur atones for such sins. Aveda shebein adam la'chaverei, however, sins that a person commits between man and his fellow, Yom Kippurim mechaper. Yom Kippur does not atone for those until he appeases his friend. As it is specifically on this that Rabbi Eliezer explains and he expounds. It says in the pasuk, of all your sins before God you shall be purified from. Now, what does this mean before God? The sins that you commit before God. Sins that are committed between man and God. So then Yom Kippur will atone for those. However, sins that are committed between man and his fellow, Yom Kippur will not atone for them until the person appeases his friend. We are up to the final paragraph of the Masechta. Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, Ashreichem Yisrael. How fortunate are you, the Jewish people. Lefni miatem mitarim. Before whom do you cleanse yourselves? Umi mitar eschem, and who purifies you? Who? Avichem shebashamayim. It is your Father in heaven. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, V'zarakti aleichem mayim toherim utahartem. It says, I will sprinkle upon you water, pure waters, and I will purify you. V'aymer, and it says elsewhere, Mikvah Yisrael Hashem. The mikvah of the Jewish people is Hashem. Mo mikvah metaris atmeim, just like a mikvah purifies those who are impure. Afa Kodesh Baruch Hu metaris is Yisrael. So too HaKadosh Baruch Hu purifies the Jewish people. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Please join us again next week when we will start a new Masechta. The next Masechta coming up is the Tractate of Sukkah. I look forward to to studying with all of you at 8:30 next week.
Of course.